Welcome back to Philosophy of Mind. Today we're going to talk about Descartes and his Meditations on First Philosophy. It's called the Meditations on First Philosophy because Descartes wanted to establish a basis for all knowledge. He wanted a firm foundation. He wanted the first philosophy, the basic foundation, so that he could determine which things are true and which things are not true. Like everybody else, Descartes sometimes made mistakes, and he wanted to establish a way of determining when he could be certain that what he believed was true and when he might be mistaken about things. So his Meditations was designed to try to establish this foundation. What are the things that you know absolutely, and what are the things that you might be mistaken about? In pursuing this, his plan is a plan of skeptical doubt. And it's useful to think when you're doing philosophy about these initial steps that a philosopher takes in establishing his argument. Philosophers begin with something that seems pretty straightforward, or premises that seem like they're probably true, and they then build on those through logical steps to things that are much more controversial. So it's useful at the beginning, even though things seem like, yeah, sure, the skeptical method, maybe we'll accept it. It's useful to think about that as you're going through and in the beginning, to try to see if you really accept those initial premises instead of just moving on to the more complicated bits. So the first meditation is really short. It's just a few pages long. It all seems very pleasant, and he's sitting by the fire and thinking about what he knows. Establishing a firm foundation for knowledge seems like a great idea. So, you might be inclined to just breeze right through. But take some more time, review this meditation, and think about what he's assuming and whether you really agree with his method. So the method is skeptical doubt. What he's going to do is try to eliminate all sources of doubt. And if he can find something that's not possible to doubt, that must be absolutely certain. So let's start by doubting everything, and then if there's anything that's left over after we doubt everything, then that's going to be our foundation, and we'll build on this foundation to try to establish other kinds of things, again, so we can sort between the things that we know and the things that might possibly be mistaken. So let's look for all the possible ways that we might doubt things. And so I'll go through the 4 sources of doubt. He thinks of 4 different things. And what you should ask yourself as you're going through these, and again, go back, review them, look at how he argues for them, and see whether you think they are sources of doubt. And for yourself, do these constitute sources of doubt, or are these, not as plausible as Descartes is suggesting? So the first thing that he thinks about, and you probably missed it because he considers it just in a few sentences and then throws it out. He thinks, maybe I'm insane. But then he says, well, I can't be insane because that would be crazy. It would be crazy to be insane. So, let's not even think about that. But as we go on, it might be worthwhile revisiting this question and say, well, what if he is insane throughout this whole Meditations? Would that be a source of doubt that he hasn't considered in the future? The second one is one that you probably remember. It's dreaming. I might be dreaming right now. If you have vivid dreams, I'm a very vivid dreamer myself. Vivid dreaming makes us think that we are perceiving things when we're not. We think that we're flying, and in fact we can't fly, or we might think that we're right here in this space, and we're not actually in this space. It seems to me that there's a light and a world outside, and I have a body, but all of that could be mistaken if I'm in a dream. So dreaming is a source of doubt that Descartes considers, and that rules out a lot of perceptual information that we take to be important to how we know things. We know things because we can see them and we can feel them. Well, but we seem to see and feel things in a dream, and those are not true. So it's okay. So maybe those things aren't really absolute sources of knowledge. So he considers then the fact that even in dreams there are still shapes, and those shapes still follow the laws of geometry, and mathematics is still true in dreams. So even in dreams, 2 plus 2 is still 4. So that's not an absolute source of doubt. I could still believe in mathematics and geometry and physics even in a dream. Those would still be true. And so he goes on and thinks about a third source of doubt, which is that maybe an all-powerful being, maybe God, is deceiving me, because God is omnipotent. God could do anything, and so God could convince me that I think that 2 plus 2 is 5, when in fact that's false. So I could be certain about the laws of mathematics, but my certainty in a dream would, if God were deceiving me, would still be a mistake. But Descartes thinks that it can't be the case that God is deceiving me, because God is also all good. God is perfectly good. And so even though God is powerful enough to deceive me, God wouldn't deceive me because of God's goodness. And so instead of God deceiving me, Descartes considers as his fourth source of doubt an evil genius, someone who is not quite as powerful as God, nobody's as powerful as God, but sufficiently powerful to deceive me about the laws of mathematics and geometry and physics, that an evil genius could be deceiving me, so that even thinking that 2 plus 2 is 4, I might be mistaken and think 2 plus 2 is 5. So at the end of the first meditations, Descartes thinks everything is in doubt. There's not one possible source of knowledge. There's not one thing that I think of that is absolutely true. Everything is open to doubt because of these 4 sources of doubt. And so thinking about those 4 sources of doubt at the end of the first meditation, it's useful to pause and say, do you agree? Do you think that these sources of doubt are sufficient to doubt absolutely everything that you know? Might you be in a matrix and everything that you perceive is false? Might the matrix demon be sufficient to convince you that the laws of mathematics are one thing when in fact they're something else? Do you think that Descartes is right at the end of meditation 1 in thinking that everything is open to possible doubt? This is the first question, and think about it. As you're going through. Don't just go through the first meditation and zip on to the second meditation. Dwell a little bit in the uncertainty that Descartes proposes, and as you go about the day, think about your knowledge, your sources of knowledge, and whether you know the things that you think that you know, and how you know them. Do you know them from perception? Do you know them because somebody told you that it's true? Do you know that because you've done mathematical calculations, and so you believe that 2 plus 2 is 4, you've applied that in various ways? Think about how you know what you know, and think about whether it can be doubted in this kind of universal way that Descartes posits at the end of the first meditation.